Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the Infinity Futures Daily Trading video. My name is Raleigh White, and I'm here to talk to you about the trades we took in our live trading room on Friday, October 24th, 2014. Well, looking at today's economic calendar, you can see that we had a very light schedule, but there were a couple of things we needed to be aware of. At 9 o'clock, we had new home sales data coming out, which was lower than expected, with 467,000 new homes projected to be built over the next year versus an estimate of 473,000. Then we also had the second day of the European Economic Summit. As far as today's pre-market sentiment was concerned, things were fairly negative coming into the open. Now, the Asian markets had closed mixed on China concern, and investors in Asia were cautious after China home prices fell 1.3% on the year, and this is for the first time we've seen any kind of a decrease in the past 2 years. We did see that the Hong Kong market closed down 0.1 of a percentage point, closing lower for the second straight day on a weakness in the banking sector. But on the flip side, the Japanese Nikkei closed up a full percentage point after robust factory data was released, showing that Japanese manufacturing activity was expanding at its fastest rate in nearly a year. We also saw that the Australian market closed up 0.5 of a point on the strength of regional corporate earnings. As far as the European markets are concerned, they were open but trending lower after the report of a new Ebola case. Now, investors in Europe are nervous after the first case of Ebola was detected in New York City. Sentiment was further being weighed down by poor quarterly results from Tesco, AXA, and Pearson, and we also saw that the European Union is now demanding that Britain pay an additional $2.7 billion into the European Union 28-country group budget, and that is a move that Britain is resisting. As far as the United States is concerned, Wall Street did figure to open up lower on fresh Ebola concerns. Now, the futures were pointing down following the global markets lower after a New York City doctor was diagnosed with Ebola after having treated patients in West Africa. Disappointing Amazon third quarter earnings also came out, but these were offset by upbeat results from Microsoft, Procter & Gamble, and General Motors. The focus for many U.S. investors today would be on the home sales data coming out at 9 o'clock, and then shifting to next week's FOMC meetings on what is otherwise going to be a very slow day for economic news. As far as our trading activity is concerned, I attempted 6 entries in the market and had 1 fill in the crude oil market. But before we look at those trades in any detail, I do need to remind everyone of this following important disclaimer. And that is that trading futures involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your circumstances, knowledge, and financial resources, as you may lose all or more of your initial investment. And always remember that past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Well, turning to the charts, let's begin here with the Euro FX futures market, and we can see that shortly after the open of the U.S. trading session, we had 1 bar, 2 bars moving higher, followed by 1 bar retracing and a second bar retracing, and I was hoping that this second bar was going to come down and give me a long entry here at 126.82, just above the previous day's high. But what happened here is the bar opened up, it moved through what would have been my profit target, and when that happened, I had to take this trade off, and I'm glad I did, because I would have gotten filled on the way towards my stop loss. The next market I saw some opportunities in was the E-mini S&P 500 market, and looking at this market, there were a couple of opportunities. After the open of the U.S. trading session, we can see that prices were starting to move lower below the main pivot point, but then they recovered, and we saw 1, 2, 3, 4 bars moving higher, followed by 1 bar retracing, and I was hoping that this second bar was going to retrace and give me a long entry at 1942.25, just above the main pivot point, but the market moved away from me and I had to take this trade off. Now, staying with the E-mini S&P, you can see we had 1, 2, 3 bars moving lower, followed by 1 bar retracing and a second bar retracing, and I was hoping the second bar was going to give me a retracement and an entry here at 1947, just below the upper Bollinger Band, and in this case, this bar did open up. It moved about a tick towards my entry and then moved through what would have been my profit target, and I had to take that trade out, and I'm glad I did that also, because you can see the market came back to fill me and move against me in what would have been a losing trade. That brings me to the E-mini Dow market. And looking at this market, we can see that we saw an opportunity here towards the tail end of the trading session. We had two bars moving lower, followed by one bar retracing and a second bar retracing. And I was sitting here at 16,631 looking at a short entry here just below the upper Bollinger Band. This bar opened up, took about a tick step towards my entry, then moved through what would have been my profit target before retracing, and then ultimately moving in this direction. I'm glad that I took this trade off, because as with two of the other trades this morning, had I left it in the market, I would have gotten filled and experienced a losing trade. The last market that I saw some opportunity in was the crude oil market. And right here at the open of the U.S. trading session, you can see we had two bars moving lower, followed by one bar retracing, and I was hoping this second bar was going to retrace and give me an entry here short at 81.26, right below the upper Bollinger Band. But you can see this bar turned around and moved away from me, and I had to take this trade out of the market. Now, staying with the crude oil market, we can see that prices were moving lower, and we saw two bars moving lower, followed by one bar retracing and a second bar retracing, and this gave me a short entry at 80.94, just below the upper Bollinger Band. This was an interesting trade. It was a fast trade because I got my fill right away. The market moved quickly 5 ticks in my direction, and when it did that, my stop loss moved to break even, and I trailed the market by 5 ticks as the market moved all the way into my profit target and gave me a 10-tick winner here, which was worth $100 per contract traded. And then, of course, you can see the market came to my profit target to the tick and then moved higher at this point in time. So I felt lucky to go ahead and get a full profit win here on this trade. And so as a result today, just to recap, we had 6 attempts and 1 fill in crude oil, and that was a winning trade, put me up $100 per contract traded, and that's where I closed my trading day. Looking forward to the weekend and to seeing what kind of opportunities might present themselves next week. Well, looking at next week's economic calendar, you can see that we have a fairly busy schedule. Now, we start things on Monday at 8:45 with the release of the Flash Services PMI, and then at 9 o'clock we have pending home sales. On Tuesday, we have core durable goods and durable goods orders coming out. We have the Composite 20 House Price Index being released and consumer confidence data. On Wednesday, we have crude oil inventories. We have the FOMC statement and federal funds rate. On Thursday, we have advanced GDP data coming out, advanced GDP price index, unemployment claims. We have Fed Chair Yellen speaking and the release of natural gas storage. And we conclude the week on Friday with the core personal consumption expenditure price index, employment cost index, personal spending, personal income, the Chicago PMI, and the revised University of Michigan consumer sentiment. So it's nice to see that virtually on every day next week there is a key report that will be released, and hopefully that's going to generate some volatility that will give us some nice trading opportunities in the markets. And so with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching today's daily video. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Take care and good night.